Good morning. Now there's a bit of a lag, so I'm just signing in to make sure that we're live. Okay, perfect. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Gabby. Just give a few moments for people to start joining in. Happy Sunday. Hope everyone is doing well. Hi, Diana. Yay. Okay. I have my phone up here to be able to read your guys' messages. How is your weekend going? How have you guys been able to disconnect a little bit and rejuvenate? Tell me what you guys have been up to. I am currently freezing right now. I slept in my parents' tiny house, their new tiny house in Washington last night, and it got down to, I don't even know, when I got up at 8 this morning, it was 40 degrees out. So I'm really chilly, and we don't have electricity at night right now, so it was pretty chilly. But I got my tea and found some Wi-Fi, so we're good to go. Hey, Lauren. Hey, Sherry. Disconnecting for sure, Lauren. Okay, good. Would love to know how you guys were disconnecting. It was pretty rainy here this weekend. It really feels like fall. So I disconnected by just reading and spending time out in nature. My parents' new place has the perfect setup. You can see the lights of the city, but you can also, you're surrounded by nature. And so it was great. I was close. I was able to see some friends that I haven't seen in a while, but then also just enjoy being by myself in nature. Love the house and guitar. This is my aunt's house. So as most of you I think that are on right now know, I am a digital nomad now. So yay, that's exciting. But I just got back from 41 days on the road and I'm leaving again next week for a little while. But in between, this is kind of my home base, is either my aunt's house here in Spokane or my parents' new place, their new tiny house. So yeah, I'm just home for the week and it's really nice. It's been great to see everyone. I love traveling, but it's also great to see my family because I'm very close with them. All right. I would love to start out. I have a pretty power-packed training today that I'm really excited to start sharing. I feel like it's very timely, the topic. But before we jump into that, I would love to hear what your guys' wins have been this last week. How things have been going in your business and your life, if anything exciting is going on. Let's celebrate together. Hey Corey, oh yay, Lauren, we walked along the beach and found a bunch of beautiful sea glass. Ooh, what beach were you at? I tried finding a couple different sea glass beaches when I was in California and Oregon last week, and the ones that they said were sea glass beaches, there wasn't a ton of sea glass at, which was kind of sad. I'll tell her, Lauren, thank you. All right. Okay, wait for some of those to come in. While I'm waiting, I'm going to just introduce the topic of today. So, as many of you know, I am a nutritional psychology coach. So, if you happened to catch the training that I did, I think it was back in May, so it was a while ago. I kind of talked a little bit about what it is that I do, because typically when I say I'm a nutritional psychology coach, oftentimes people don't know exactly what that is. And so I kind of have this blank slate of getting to tell them. So essentially, nutritional psychology, in technical terms, is the science of how food affects our mood and our behavior. But on the flip side of that, it's also looking at how our lifestyle can impact the way that we eat, how we eat, and just our overall mental state. So it's very much a cycle. And that's really what I'm super passionate about, is just looking into that. So there's so much more to nutritional psychology than just the food that we eat, the nutrients that are on our plate. I'm going to talk more about that later. But today I wanted to specifically do something health related, specifically mental health, because yesterday was World Mental Health Day. So I didn't know that when I said I would train on this topic, but I felt like it was something that I needed to train on. And then I found out that that was the date. So I'm like, oh, this is perfect. It's aligning just great. But this is a very important topic. especially as business owners, as entrepreneurs. And why would that be? Because our brains are what we are depending on for everything. Yes, your bodily functions are controlled by your brain, but also your emotions. Um, if you're having positive or negative thoughts, those are all very much influencing not just your life outside of work, but how you're able to show up in your business. So if you're wanting to scale your business to the next level, then you're going to need to focus on your overall well-being, but especially your mental state. So mental clarity, reducing anxiety, all of that. So I'm going to talk about specifics of this. But I see some comments coming in, so let me respond to your guys' wins. Okay, Corey said that she launched her brand new visualization to help people stop compromising on their dreams, and it felt so good. That's awesome. Okay, I haven't checked that out yet, so if that's something that we're allowed to listen to, I would love to. Very exciting. Lauren, I live in Connecticut. One of the beaches there you really have to look for. Oh, cool. Okay, I haven't been to Connecticut. I'm going to Nashville and DC and Michigan next week, so kind of that direction somewhat. Corey, I need this right now. I've had some physical health symptoms lately, and I've been trying to figure out what's going on emotionally that's impacting my body. Ooh, I love that you know that there's a connection there between the physical and the emotional, because there most certainly is, and the brain is a huge component of that. Isabella says perfect timing for this. Yay. Awesome. Okay, I'm glad your boyfriend's listening in too, Lauren. Great. Okay, so sounds like we got some good wins this week. I'm going to go ahead and just start training on this. So mental health. Why is it so important for your business? Because it's literally what's controlling every aspect of your life. And if your life is out of orient, then your business is also going to be. And we talk a lot about professional development in the entrepreneurial world, bettering yourself, growing in different ways. But very rarely have I heard someone talk about eating to support your mental health so that you can show up fully in your life and in your business. So that's what I want to start talking about today. From the field of nutritional psychology, just giving you a little background on how I got into this. Personal experience, probably like most of us with starting our businesses. Growing up, I suffered from quite a bit of social anxiety and anxiety to the point where I would literally not leave my room for days as like a middle school, early teen. And I would have panic attacks. I had inhalers that I actually had to bring places. And in the midst of having that anxiety, I also had lots of skin issues, pretty bad acne that just added to the anxiety of going out. I was insecure because of that. And so I had, these mental health issues. I had the physical health with showing through with like my skin and just trying to get on that. I also was just super, super fixated on losing weight. Even though I was a pretty thin kid, I was so worried that I was overweight. And so I was always trying to cut back, count my calories, very restrictive. And that only got worse as I got further into high school. And so it finally hit the point, I think it was like junior, senior year, where I had this really low point and I was just realizing like, I need to make a change. I need to do something different. And so I started I cut like dairy out of my diet and started eating more fruits and vegetables. And I'm like, okay, this will help me lose some weight at least, But I started to realize that not only did I get to a weight that I felt really good at, I also my skin started clearing up. I didn't have as bad of acne. I had these bumps on my arms and on my legs, and it completely disappeared. And I had been trying everything, every ointment, every cream, all of my life to try to get rid of that. I also started noticing that I wasn't anxious as much anymore. Sure, I would still get a little bit anxious when I go around big groups of people, but I wasn't locked in my room. It wasn't debilitating me. And the only thing I could really think of is that I was focusing more on my physical health. And so focusing on my diet, focusing on what I was just eating. So that's when I realized that I was trying to treat all these other aspects of myself as separate aspects, and it's just not. Like, it was all connected. And so when I started to realize that, I just became so passionate about it and I wanted to share it with everyone, but I'm like, I don't even know very much about this. And so I started researching. I started looking into possible career paths because I was also finishing up high school. And okay, what could I do to be able to share this with people? Because it was working for me. It literally, like, it was transforming my life and how I was able to show up. Not how I looked, not just how I felt, but in the way that I was able to show up for the people around me, for myself, and ultimately now for my business. So once I just like started looking around, I was really into the nutrition piece because that was huge for me, but I felt like I couldn't just focus on the nutrition. I had to be able to pull from other areas. So that's when I started looking also more at mental health. And I started kind of creating this career path for myself. And the further I got into it, I actually realized that nutritional psychology is a real field. It's up and coming. It's not super well known. It's only the past 10 or so years that it's really become something that is being heavily researched. But I was like, this is it. This is it for me. And I just knew in that moment. And since then, I've just been pursuing this further. So I'm kind of like getting a little off topic. I wasn't planning on sharing my whole story here, but I think that it's important to realize the connection between all of this. And so as we jump into the actual training here, which I'm going to pull up slides for in just a moment, I want you to think about, and you can leave me a comment if you have noticed this connection for yourself, where maybe you've struggled with physical health or mental health or spiritual health, emotional health, any of these factors. Have you noticed that when you focus on one, it improves the other and vice versa? I would love to know if you guys have seen this for yourself. And if not, be more intentional about looking at it. And I'm going to give you some tips and resources to try to focus specifically on your mental health through your nutrition. So reach out to me and let me know if it's working for you, if you're seeing the difference. Okay, I have a lot to talk about. So preface, I know that a lot of you are healthcare, you're in the healthcare field. Maybe you're health coaches, or really any of us as coaches have probably focused a lot on our overall wellness. So I was a little bit nervous. I'm like, I know that typically I work with people who are just trying to figure it out. And I'm hoping that no matter where you're at in your journey, you will be able to pull something away from this. And even if we have all the know-how, sometimes it's just about taking the action. So if nothing else, even if you've heard all of this before, I hope that you'll be able to take away something that you can actually do with it. Okay, I saw a bunch of comments coming through, so I'm gonna catch up on that. I got in a zone. Okay, gotta go back ways. Yes, okay. I'm seeing people being in the mental health field. It is so fascinating. Yeah. It's a great place to start out. And I think it's something that a lot of us can relate with, because whether or not you have been diagnosed with something mental health related, chances are you have experienced some sort of anxiety or intense stress in your life. And learning to take care of your brain is so important for preventing that and treating it. Okay. I sound like a geek, but I'm so into this. Good. I'm into it too. Can you tell, like, I'm so passionate right now. 100% mind, body, and soul, and emotional connection. It's a thing. Everything is interconnected. Yes, it is. Corey, I had an autoimmune disease triggered by a year of extreme mental anguish. Wow. And when I removed myself from that situation, it changed everything. Thank you for sharing that, Corey. I know you talked quite a bit on your pages about your experience with that and how it's led you to what you're doing now. And I think it's so important for us to, as cliche as this sounds, like, break the stigma and be able to talk about it and bring awareness to mental health is not just mental health. Mental health is impacting everything else in our bodily functions in our life. So it's so important to realize that connection. Lauren, when I was in a rut for a period of time, I would just binge on junk. I was so irritable, anxious, depressed, wasn't exercising, slept a lot. The pandemic helped motivate me to change things around, and all of those symptoms and issues have improved dramatically. Wow. Huge, huge win. Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this later, but when we have these sort of stressful, over stressful periods of time where we have a lot of stressors just coming at us, it can be really easy to just get into that rut. So I'm proud of you for being able to break free from that and to focus and just make little changes. Little changes are the best thing that we can do for getting out of a situation like that, because it does. It seems like once we're in it, it's really hard to get out. But if you just take one ring of the ladder at a time, you'll be able to climb out of that hole. Okay. What time is it here? Okay. We're only like 15 minutes in. So I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to actually talk about the sciencey portions of this training. Okay. Hopefully you all can see this. Feeding your brain to fuel your business, eating for mental wellness. Whew. So I'm going to try to keep this as general as I can, just so that it's tangible and I'm not throwing out all of these sciencey terms just for the heck of throwing out sciencey terms. If you want to know more on a deeper level, because I really am just scratching the surface, there's so much to know in this field, then please reach out to me. I'm going to be sharing at the end also some other exciting like resources that I have coming up that you could be a part of. But look into further. I'll tell you when to. You'll be like, okay, like screenshot this so that you can be able to look into it more later if you want to. Or I love talking about it, obviously. So message me if you have any questions about anything and we can go deeper beyond the surface level. Okay, so this is kind of the main points that I want to talk on today. First of all, how does this whole connection work between what we're eating and our mental state? So I'm going to talk on how the mind is affected by both diet and digestion. More specifically, nourishing the first and second brains. You might be like, what is the first and second brain? Or maybe you've heard this term before. I will explain that in a moment. But this is kind of like the main point. This is just an overarching theme of what nutritional psychology really is. And specifically also looking at trusting your gut. So oftentimes when we think of that term, like trusting your gut, we might think of just our intuition, but it's so much more than that, because if we think about it, our brain is making our decisions, okay? And there's actually this correlation that is scientifically proven between your gut and that knowing, just knowing that something needs to be. So you might be confused at the moment. That's fine. I'm going to talk about it on the next slide. Then I'm going to move on to types of nutrients that are essential for your brain to function optimally. I'm going to talk about macronutrients and micronutrients. If you don't know what macro and micronutrients are, I'll give a general overview of that when I get to that portion of the training. But also you can reach out to me and I can give you more resources on what that looks like and how to make sure you're getting the right ones in your diet. Then I'm going to move on to psychological effects on mood and behavior. So this is where it gets much more practical, not just like understanding the science behind it, but how you can actually implement this into your own life. So we're going to talk about the symptoms, how to tell if you are getting the right macro and micronutrients to have a properly functioning brain. And we're going to talk about both the negative symptoms and the positive symptoms. So if you are not in the right balance of those nutrients, you may experience brain fog or lack of clarity. This might also be causing a lot of anxiety for you, or it might even put you in a place of depression. Now, obviously, there are so many other factors than just what you're eating and how you're taking care of your body and your brain. I will talk more on what some of those might be, but just know that this is just a factor. Like I said, it's all of these things are working together. So it's not just the food, but the food is a very big component that has been overlooked for way, way too long. And I'm so glad that there's starting to be attention being brought to it. So then once you recognize what the symptoms are, how do you diagnose if you have a nutrient deficiency in your body? We're going to talk about professional testing and what options are there. And then we're also going to talk about cravings and how actually what you are craving is going to be able to tell you what nutrients or what aspects in your life you might need to be focusing on. And if for those of you who went through like Institute for Integrative Nutrition or something similar, you might recognize these terms, the primary and the secondary foods. I'm really big on that. I love talking about that with my clients. So I'm going to touch briefly on that when we get to that slide as well. I know this is a lot. Treatment. Once you know the symptoms, you know what your diagnosis is, if you are lacking or you have enough of certain nutrients, then it's time to actually treat yourself. So I'm going to give you some basic foods that you can use to elevate your mood, to elevate your behavior, your brain functions, especially during times of stress, because right now, with everything that's been happening this year, there is a lot of stress in the world, probably more than usual. And then also, as a business owner, it can be stressful at times. So knowing how to support yourself when you're going through a time where it might be more hustle mode is really key to being able to succeed in the long run. I'm also going to talk about not just what foods to eat, but what foods to not eat or to crowd out. Okay. There's a lot there. I'm going to get through as much as I can in the next, 20, 30 minutes. And if you have any questions along the way, please write them down for me in the comment section, because I can kind of just get lost into the topic that I'm speaking on, and I want to make sure that it makes sense to you how I'm explaining it. I'm going to read the comments before we move on. Okay. Corey, I had no idea nutritional psychology was a thing at the time when you were figuring out career path. Yeah, and I wish more people would know about it. I wish doctors were trained in this. Me too. Because it would have saved me from months of medication. Oh, with your autoimmune disease. Yeah, no, for real. And that is a cause that I'm so passionate about, is making sure that this is not just a form of integrative healthcare, but that it becomes a part of the allopathic medical system as well. And it's going to take time, just like anything. But I would encourage, if any of you are really interested in this topic and you want to get involved, or you want to learn more, or you want to even just have something to suggest to your clients, the Center for Nutritional Psychology is a group which I am somewhat correlated with, and they actually have the mission of having this education in schools as a degree by the middle of next year. So that's just like basic courses, but they're working towards actually having full undergraduate, graduate programs in nutritional psychology, which is huge, because right now you have to just build your own sort of career and then do some certifications to be specialized in nutritional psychology. Just a little side note. Okay, have not heard the term. Cool. Just reading this. Corey has helped with teaching me to follow my gut. What's a yes and what's a no? This includes with food, so I appreciate this. Yeah, Corey. Corey's the queen of intuition and listening to your gut. Really is. Okay, so how the mind is affected by diet and digestion. As I said, this is just scraping the surface. I could talk on this topic for like hours. So hopefully this makes sense in its most basic terms. The first and the second brain. If you are not familiar with what those terms mean, I assume you know what your first brain is. That is just the brain that's in your head. The second brain is actually in your gut. And obviously you don't have a literal brain in your stomach. But the reason that we say this is because your gut is actually playing a huge role in how your brain is emotionally and cognitively functioning. So the second gut, your stomach, it actually takes food particles that you eat and then it translates them into chemical messages, which are neurotransmitters, that supports, or at least ideally is supporting, your emotions and cognition. So that might be a little confusing, but this is kind of that connecting point that makes it all make sense. Like, oh, this is how food is impacting mental health. Because what you're eating goes into your stomach, it translates from food particles into chemical messages. So depending on what you're eating, you're getting a different amount of these chemical messages that is then going to relate to your brain and the functioning of the rest of your body. So I'm going to talk a little more on these chemical messages throughout this training because there's a lot to that. Something to know about digestion is that the body will only digest in a rest state. So this goes back to being stressed. Stress in itself is not a bad thing. It's when we have chronic stress that it can be imperative to your mental functioning. So basically, if you are in a constant state of stress, it will keep your body from being able to extract the necessary nutrients from your food that aid in a healthy digestion. And then those nutrients are then able to be translated to these necessary chemical messages. So if you are always stressed out, you're maybe not eating while being able to sit down and enjoy your meal, but you're just eating on the go, or you're very stressed. For instance, if you are working a 9 to 5 job and then you come home and you are so stressed from your day, you just hate your job, you were arguing with your coworkers, you couldn't quite measure up to what your boss was expecting of you, and then you get home and you just want to sit, but then you can't because you have your kids to take care of. You have to run them to practice. You have to do all these different things. I don't know what your life looks like, but this is just an example of not being able to allow your body to slow down and digest. As I said, stress is not a bad thing. So think about if you're out in the jungle and a tiger jumps out. You have to decide, are you going to fight the tiger or are you going to run away from the tiger? It's that fight or flight mode that we talk about often when it comes to stress. It's the same sort of thing. So that's actually protecting you, right? That's protecting you. So stress is not bad, but when you are constantly living in that stress, then your body is not able to get into this rest and digest mode, which is necessary for those nutrients to be able to be pulled from your food. That will help you with reducing bloating because you're actually able to digest your food. It's not just sitting there while everything's happening. And you're able to support your brain in this way. So comment in the comments if you are taking time to restfully digest your food when you're eating, or if you are going to focus on that this week. I kind of skipped over this point. So with the first and the second brain, this idea of trusting your gut, I'm not sure if you have heard of this before, but I was pretty just like amazed when I understood this, that because those food particles that we're eating are translating into the chemical messages that then essentially make up our thoughts. This is why you might actually have butterflies in your stomach, or when you might just have this like gut feeling like, oh, this is bad or this is good. It's because you actually have, in a sense, I'm taking a little liberty here, but in a sense, you kind of have these like thoughts and emotions happening here before they happen up here. So there's just so much more connection there than we really ever thought in the past. And it's something pretty fascinating if you want to look into it more. Okay, this picture breaks down everything. And this is really huge. I am just going to talk on a couple of these points, but if you want to screenshot this and be able to look up some of these other areas or ask me about it later, I would love for you to do that because there's so much to learn in this area. I'm just going to tell you the basics of what you need to know in order to be able to support your body in a better way, just to start with. So we talked a little bit about how your body is by what you eat and by how you are digesting your food. This cycle shows it great. So there is actually this microbiota that is in your gut, and based on what you're eating, those microbiota are either more diversified or more abundant, or less diversified and less abundant. And so when you have too many of the wrong microbiota or too little of the right ones, that can cause for these chemical messages to not be sending properly to your brain. And this is what causes a lack of certain, like, neurotransmitters, because the chemical messages are actually neurotransmitters. I know I'm kind of like going all over the place. I'm hoping this is making sense. It's hard to like summarize, and I haven't had to do this in a while. So it's hard for me to like summarize the basics of each of these points. Gabby, yes. Yes, I will definitely post it. Okay, so chemical messengers, like we talked about, as being the signals that are giving from your food to your brain and being able to act upon that, are actually those neurotransmitters that are created based off of the microbiota that are in your gut. So the most important ones to really focus on would be GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that is an anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. And if you are not eating the right types of foods, then your GABA production could be way off, which then, if it's an anti-anxiety component, without that being in the body and without your body secreting the right amounts of that, you're going to be lacking, which means you're going to probably be experiencing anxiety. Another couple neurotransmitters, these chemical messengers that are really important for mental health and overall wellness, are dopamine and serotonin. So depending on the foods you're eating, you could have a lot of these or way too little. You want to be in the middle ground. So dopamine and serotonin actually help with food intake regulation. So how much you're eating, what you're eating, when you're eating. They also are super important for getting the right sleep, for maintaining happiness levels, for not being addicted to things, or if you have too much, then it can cause addiction, or too little. With weight management, these are both really important with that, and just overall mood. So as you can see, there is a lot that is a lot of components within what you're eating affecting your mental health. And the neurotransmitters being the most important that I'm going to focus on today. But other ones really great to look into are listed here as well. So I will share that with the replay if you guys want to look further into that. So how can we make sure that we're getting the right nutrients to be able to support these chemical messengers, to be able to support our overall brain health? Macronutrients is the best way to start. So there are 3 different macronutrients. You may know of these already, but those are fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Each of these have a big component that they play in your overall health, but especially in your brain function. And this is why I typically do not suggest that people go on an extreme diet unless it's specifically for an ailment that they are doing just as a therapeutic thing. I am all for lifestyle change. And so some diets will want you to remove a large amount or all of one of these food groups. And that's just not healthy when it comes to mental health. So be mindful of that if you are currently following a specific food regimen, and analyze if you're maybe not getting enough or too much of a certain one of these. Fats, starting with fats. Like stress, when I say the word fat, sometimes people associate that as a negative thing. Fats, the right kind of fats, are not bad. In fact, fats provide energy for your brain. So, fun fact, your brain is actually made up of 60% fat. So if you're not getting enough fat in your diet, where is that going to be coming from, to be able to maintain? So fats are essential for the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins, which are micronutrients that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. But vitamins like A, D, E, and K, which need fat for transport to cells. So you need the fat to be able to actually absorb these certain nutrients that may be in your food, and then to be able to get that for your brain function. There are 3 categories of healthy fats: saturated, monosaturated, and polyunsaturated. So I'll talk about more how you can get the right amount of fats, how much you should be having, and like what food specifically will be able to make sure that you're getting that in your diet. The second is proteins. So proteins break into amino acids, which are necessary for neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers that we were talking about earlier. These brain chemicals, like I said, neurotransmitters, are the messengers of information throughout not just your brain, but your whole body. And they are formed from the amino acids that the proteins break down into. And they affect so many different things, but specifically food, sleep, and cravings. So very correlated with what we're talking about. And the third topic, or the third macronutrient, is carbohydrates. So carbohydrates break down into glucose, which are used for brain function. So this is part of the energy as well. Carbs include sugars, fibers, starches, and are either in simple or complex form. They provide energy by regulating fat metabolism. So as you can see, there's a correlation between these macronutrients as well, because the carbs actually help with regulating the fat metabolism. So if you are, I'm all for being carb conscious, especially when it comes to refined carbs, refined sugars. You should really be limiting how much of that you have in your daily diet. But I am for the purpose of brain health and not for cutting carbs out completely, because it's a very important component to provide for your brain function, for that energy, and for the fat metabolism. So how do you know if you're getting the right amount of these different nutrients? I'm going to talk about in a little bit like symptoms if you're lacking, but in a general basis, you want to make sure that you are getting a serving of each of these for every meal that you eat. And I could go into what grams specifically you need, but I don't feel like that would be fair, because my approach to wellness coaching is looking at the bioindividuality of every person. And so if I just were to say you need this many grams of protein every day, that could be very different depending on who you are biologically, what your lifestyle is, what your goals are. So just know that based off of that, if you're needing someone to look specifically and if you're getting enough of these nutrients, definitely can reach out to me. That is a big part of what I do. But just know that you should be getting at least a serving of each of these at every meal that you eat, whatever a serving size is for you based off of your bioindividuality. But a simple way that you can make sure that you're getting these in addition, because oftentimes there's certain ones that we might be lacking more of in our diet. Fats, healthy fats, easy things. Avocado, you can throw in anything. Coconut oil, olive oil, really any type of whole oil that isn't refined is a great way to go. And then for proteins you probably are getting enough of, especially if you are if you're not eating just like a plant-based diet. If you're eating a plant-based diet, it's definitely still possible for you to be getting enough, but you might have to be a little more intentional about it. So I often suggest hemp hearts as something to supplement in. Of course, there's always, legumes and different things that you can put in. Nuts are always great, nuts and seeds, but hemp hearts are super easy. You can get like a dozen grams of protein just from 3 tablespoons of hemp hearts. So I highly recommend you try that. Also, almonds. If you just eat 10 almonds a day, maybe if you are needing a little pick-me-up during the day, at lunch or something, eat 10 raw almonds, and that is a great way to just have on hand. I'm going to cover just this carbohydrates, and then I'm going to read some of these comments. So for carbs, what should you know about carbs? So just be cautious that you are getting the right types of carbs. Most fruits and vegetables do have some carb in them. Of course, if you're eating any kind of grains, that's going to have carbs. Try to steer away from refined carbs or things that have refined sugar in them. Oftentimes, our diet is composed of a lot more carbs than probably what our body really needs to thrive. And if you do have too much carbs, specifically sugars, then you might end up producing too much serotonin, which is one of those neurotransmitters we talked about. And serotonin helps with regulating your sleep. So if you have too much serotonin, then you might find yourself being very drowsy throughout the day. So maybe if you are very tired and you're getting the right amount of protein, you're getting the right amount of fats, you can look at, are your carb intake, is it the right kind of carbs, and is it way over the top? Fun fact, 90% of your serotonin is created in your gut, your second brain. So very much right there. Okay, I'm going to read some of these comments because I just got in the zone with this. Corey, I'm reading your tagging everyone. You're so sweet. Yay. Okay. I think I eat too late. Ooh, I don't know if I missed another comment before that. Tell me more about that, Lauren, about eating too late. On that point though, I did want to talk about that. So even if you're not exactly sure if you're getting the right exact amount of all of these macronutrients, start simple, because sometimes what we really need to do is just go back to the basics and make sure that we're in alignment with what we know already to be true. Are you eating at consistent times of the day? Are you eating at times of the day when you actually are hungry, when your body needs that fuel? Are you eating full meals, or are you kind of just snacking a lot in between? Listen to the natural rhythms of your body to know when you need to eat and how much you need to eat. My big thing is, I know that intermittent fasting is quite a focus right now, but for brain health, if you're wanting to support your brain health specifically, breakfast is essential, and not just a sugary refined breakfast, but having something that is going to sustain you, making sure you're getting the healthy fats, the proteins, the carbohydrates earlier in the day, because your body, it's setting the tone for the rest of the day and how your body is going to react in what it's craving and whatnot. So if you decide you want to do intermittent fasting, definitely reach out to me and we can talk about what would work best for your body, because some people do really well off of it, but you have to make sure that you're still giving your body what it needs when it needs it. Okay. So here, stress is your friend if you make it so, and if you remove the negative connotation from it, and of course, if you are not in a constant state of stress. Yes, absolutely, Diana. Okay. Is that bad, Lauren? Even if it's healthy, we eat dinner at like 8 to 9 p.m. sometimes. Okay, good question. So it depends on when you're going to bed. I typically recommend that my clients not eat ideally around 4 hours before they go to sleep, but at least 2 hours, because it does give your body time to digest before it's sleeping. This is what happens. If you go to bed and you are on a full stomach, all of your energy while you're sleeping is going to go towards digesting because you are in a rest state. Now, if all of your energy is going towards that, what's happening in your brain with being able to clear what you don't need from the day, give that kind of that healthy brainwash that sleep gives, is not going to happen. So if you're eating at 9 o'clock and then you're going to bed at 9:30 or 10, that's not really giving your body enough time to be able to digest the food, which means your body is going to be working on digesting that food while you're sleeping instead of cleansing your mind. This is why you might wake up feeling a little bit groggy or not having as much energy throughout the day, especially mental clarity wise, because your brain isn't getting a rest. It's just having to it's having to completely keep working, even when it's supposed to be getting a break at night. I hope that answered that question. So it depends. It depends on when you are eating. Maybe just or when you're eating, when you're going to sleep. Just be mindful of making sure you're giving yourself enough time to digest. And if you are feeling groggy in the morning or not having as much energy, that could be a key component to it. Okay. Isabella, yes, I used to think we all needed the same amount of everything. So when I tried different diets, they didn't work for me and did the opposite until I realized what worked for me and started making the nutrition habits that fuel me and make me feel good. Oh, such a good realization. I'm so glad that you wrote that out. Thank you for sharing that. This is the basis of what I do. This is the basis of my whole career, of my own view on health, how I try to treat myself, because I have done that also. I have been in the cycles, I have done the fad diets, the fad workouts, everything, the stuff that's supposed to work, and it might work for like a couple of weeks, but then I fall off of it, or I don't feel good anymore. And the reason is because there's so many other aspects that make me, that might make this diet work for the person next door, but it doesn't necessarily work for me. And so this is a huge part, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, hopefully, if I get to it before the time's up, um, on being able to listen to yourself, giving yourself permission to listen to yourself and to know that you are the expert of your own body. Even if you don't have all the science education on it, you know your body, and you can learn to listen to your body more and more every day to be able to take care of it accordingly. Janu, that's my biggest problem, not giving myself enough time after eating to digest. My sleep is horrible. This makes a lot of sense now. Wow. Okay. So start taking action in that then, making that realization. That's something that's fairly simple that we can be mindful of, to make sure that we are giving ourselves enough time to digest. Now, a key point on that, if you wait too long, and everybody's different, like I said, it's usually around 4 hours, but if you notice that you're wanting to snack right before you go to bed, if you wait too long before you, like after you've eaten dinner to go to sleep, then adjust that, because you don't want to have to be like hungry when you go to bed. You shouldn't feel hungry, but you shouldn't be overstuffed and so full that you like are having a hard time sleeping. All right, next topic, the micronutrients. I'm going to talk on this very briefly because I want to get on to the next part. But micronutrients, so we talked about the macronutrients, which are those larger nutrients that make up a big portion of your diet, the fats, the proteins, the carbs. The micronutrients are also very essential. These are specific vitamins and minerals that are in your food, and you want to make sure you're getting the right amount of these different ones. I do have a handout for this, which I will be sharing more at the end of this, how you can get access to that if you're interested. But this is just an easy way to make sure that you're getting the right amounts of them. So if you are at the point where you feel like you have a pretty good diet when it comes to macronutrients and you're ready to take it to the next level, micronutrients are a great thing to be able to focus on. But if you're not wanting to completely be fixated on getting the right certain micronutrients, a very general way of making sure you are still getting the ones you need is to eat what I call the brainbow. So as a general rule of thumb, different foods that we eat, if they are the same color, so if you're eating mostly green foods or mostly red foods, most of those foods contain similar micronutrients. So when you are building a plate of food, try to make it not be all one color. Try to pull from different color groups, whether that's fruits, vegetables, grains, meats, whatever it is. Just make sure that you are expanding your palette on that. And you will be getting the majority of what you need and able to be getting those micronutrients. The rainbow, yes. Thanks, Gabby. I thought that was pretty clever. So eat the rainbow to get your micronutrients. I want to talk about also, so this plate kind of shows what it could be looking like to be getting a balanced plate. As you can tell, there are different colors, which is really great because we're getting the different micronutrients. You're getting your different macronutrients from those key components within the plates. And there's what I call these primary foods on the outside of the plate. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But as you can see, this is a little bit different than your typical plate of food that you might think of when you think of what you're supposed to eat. So we're including these other areas of your life: relationships, career, physical activity, spirituality. And I will talk about why that's considered nourishment in a moment. Okay, so we know kind of the background now on how your food is impacting your mental health. Okay, you know the science of it, but how do you actually take action on it? I've given you a few things: how to focus on macronutrients and micronutrients. but there's more to it than that. And if you're really wanting to take this to the next level, this is how. First of all, knowing the symptoms. So, like we talked about earlier, if you are experiencing brain fog, which essentially is a lack of clarity, literally feeling like you're in a fog when you go from task to task during the day, kind of not being able to see in front of you, and or maybe not even focus on the task at hand. You may also be experiencing anxiety or even depression. I do want to note here when it comes to diagnosing these symptoms, obviously you will be able to tell yourself oftentimes if one of these, if you're experiencing one of these symptoms. But when it comes to some of them like anxiety or depression, um, there are ways that you can go about getting diagnosed with specifically that and how you can come up with a plan to tackle it. So professional testing, especially if it is something related to anxiety or depression, or a more severe mood disorder. Food is a huge component to mental health. It really is, how you're nourishing yourself. But there are so many other factors that need to be taken into consideration also. I often tell my clients that I can help you with the nutrition, but sometimes that's not what we're going to need to focus on. And maybe it is the nutrients, but you might not be at the place because of everything else happening in your life that you need to tackle first to be able to look at those nutrients. So, especially if you've hit a really low point and maybe you are experiencing some depression, then professional testing, professional help might be what you need. And I always suggest I will refer out if it gets to the point where I feel like my clients need to work with a professional who can help them through a specific area of their mental health, that you do that. And so if that is the case, please, please, please do not be afraid to reach out for help. And even if you don't know how to reach out for help, you can always message somebody who, there's so many people on Instagram. You can message me. I'll help try to get you connected with someone. And that's very important to do. So with that aside, there's also professional testing that you can do if you maybe aren't experiencing as much of these severe symptoms, but you're wanting to know what specific nutrients you're lacking. They can test for specific nutrient deficiencies within your body. If you're not wanting to get into all the professional part, but you still want to take action, cravings are a great way to know what it is that you are missing in your diet, your lifestyle. So this is what I have a whole training on this actually. If you check out my Instagram, Kesslyn Gem, I did a live interview thing a while back on cravings. And so would highly recommend you go watch it. It's like a 40-minute training on actually listening to your cravings and how to depict what they're saying you need. But at a basic level, sometimes our cravings do tell us that we're missing a specific nutrient. So maybe you are lacking either a vitamin, a mineral, or maybe it's just a macronutrient overall. If you are craving lots of salty foods or lots of sugary foods or carbs, it could be your body just telling you that you need a certain one of these other nutrients. And that's it, all it knows to do is like, hey, I need this. And it's literally signaling you to feed it something. So you just need to know how to understand the code that your body is using and to feed it the right kind of nutrients to fulfill those cravings. Now, it might not be as much one of the nutrients that's lacking. It might be one of your primary foods. So this is a little confusing to people sometimes, but we have primary foods and we have secondary foods. I focus a lot on the secondary foods when it comes to nutrition. But the primary foods is everything that is off of your plate. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this training, there is all of these other areas that I consider most important when nourishing yourself. You can be eating the healthiest diet ever, and if you are not focusing on these other areas of your life, it's not going to matter. Because food is only one component of a much bigger picture that your body is working through. So analyze when you have a craving, okay? You come home from work, or maybe you just got in an argument with your partner and you're super stressed out and all you want to do is just relax on the couch and watch a movie and eat a tub of ice cream. Ask yourself, do I want to eat this because my body is craving something sweet? And maybe I can crowd it out with something that is of a healthier version of the sweet craving? Or am I just eating this for the emotional pick me up that the dopamine is going to give me if I eat this food? And if that is the case, then obviously you want to look at these other areas of your life. Now, I'm not saying that if you want to sit and watch a movie and eat a tub of ice cream, that you can't do that. I am not for restriction. I'm all about food freedom and eating and to support your lifestyle, your overall goals. But if this becomes an every night occurrence and it's impairing the rest of your goals and your overall health, then you definitely should look into how you can support yourself through both your primary and your secondary foods. So let me know in the comments if you have been paying attention to this with your primary or secondary foods and how you can be able to support yourself through both. So we talked a bit about the treatment on foods that elevate your mood, your behavior, and your brain functions. Some simple ones: almonds, dark chocolate. I didn't get to why you're eating dark chocolate, but know that if you've heard dark chocolate is good for you, it is. So this is your permission to go eat dark chocolate. Make sure that it is above 70% dark chocolate and that it's not with a bunch of added sugars, because that kind of defeats the purpose. And then okay, and then foods to crowd out. So we talked about refined foods. You want to eat as whole as possible. Obviously, healthy looks different for everyone. So if you are finding that it's really difficult and it's putting strain in other areas of your life to be able to be eating all completely organic, fresh fruits and vegetables, nothing processed, everything made from scratch, find a balance. Eating healthy is not meant to be a difficult thing. It is meant to be something that it can be sustainable for you in the long run. Again, it's not what I'm teaching you today is not about making a fad change that's only going to last for a few weeks. It's about making small lifestyle steps that can be for the rest of your life. Okay, so closing out here, I have just scratched the surface, just giving the basics of what I have to share with you in this area on how to support your brain to be able to show up in your life and in your business. And I want to invite you, if this is something that you find, okay, now you know the basics, but maybe when it comes to the implementing, I don't know about you, but like, leave me a comment if this is you, because I always do this. I will feel like I will like go to a training like this, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take action. I'm going to make sure I'm getting all the nutrients I need. I'm going to focus on my primary foods. And then life happens and I don't make the changes. And sometimes we just need the accountability to say, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to make this happen. And I have found that, yes, it does take time. Things happen to make it a lifestyle. But if you can have someone help kickstart that with you, it's huge. So I want to invite you guys. On November 1st through 7th, I'm doing a 7-day brain detox where I'm going to help you kickstart your mental wellness journey through dietary nutrients, physical activity, lifestyle nourishment, and you're going to receive daily accountability and guidance to make changes that actually last. So I'm going to be going live. I'm going to be giving you resources. It's going to be me holding your hand through that first week of the journey, beginning of November. So I would love if you want to join in. I'm really excited about this. It is free, by the way. I'm really excited about this because I feel like this is something I'm so passionate about. It's something that everyone should be able to know the basics of and to be able to integrate into their life. So leave me a comment if you want to join in. Just say detox and I'll be sure to reach out to you when I have more details on what this is going to all include and to make sure that you can get there. I'm going to be giving giveaways different days during the challenge. So just to keep you extra motivated to keep showing up. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time. And I think it'll be really helpful in being able to encourage you on your health and wellness journey, specifically focusing on your mental health. So yay! I'm seeing we got some different people here. We got Janu, Gabby, Corey, Janu, awesome. Okay, yay. And any of you that are watching the replay, if you want to join in, please let me know as well. This is still a few weeks away, so you have plenty of time to get committed. And in the meantime, start taking these small changes we talked about today to implement now, and then we'll take it the next level when we meet beginning of November. But thank you all so much, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.